The Italian peninsula has a staggering and enviable history. Italy reached its great heights under the Roman Empire and during the Renaissance in a powerhouse of art and culture. Fragmented for most of its history, by the mid-19th century, Italy was officially united as a republic, becoming the great nation we know today. The Italian peninsula is blessed in many ways. It has unusually rich and fertile soil, and easy access to both the European mainland and the Adriatic and Aegean seas. During its early history, many migrants settled in this lush landscape. While we know little about Italy's early Bronze Age civilizations, by around 800 BCE, Italy began to thrive during the Iron Age. In particular, the Etruscan civilization, located in the northwest region of what was then Etruria, began to become a significant ancient power. The Etruscans are famous for their gladiatorial games, their ironworking, and their brightly colored frescoes found at archaeological sites across Italy. Historians are still unsure where the Etruscans originally came from, and their language has little in common with others from the ancient world. Although Etruscan history is shrouded in myth, we do know that by the 6th century BCE, the Etruscan League controlled large parts of Italy. According to legend, the first 3 kings of ancient Rome were also Etruscans, and the Romans themselves would adopt many aspects of the Etruscan culture. The ancient Romans were one of several Latin-speaking peoples who formed an alliance known as the Latin League. The Romans would gradually overtake the Etruscans, swallowing the entire Italian peninsula by the 3rd century BCE. Although Roman Italy would create a great empire in time, when it started to expand overseas, it became locked in a deadly battle for survival against the North African Empire of Carthage, the superpower of the day. During the conflict, the Carthaginian general Hannibal marched war elephants over the Alps into Italy, annihilating the Roman military in a series of crushing defeats. This was the closest Rome ever came to destruction, but the Romans were ultimately victorious after many years of war. Having destroyed Carthage, Rome began its great expansion. By the 1st century BCE, Rome was already the undisputed master of the Mediterranean, having absorbed vast areas of land across 3 continents. The Roman army was a formidable fighting force, and Roman culture flowered as it absorbed more nations. Contact with Greece greatly enriched ancient Rome, which adopted Greek-style architecture, sculpture, philosophy, and literature. However, as Rome's power grew, so did its political problems at home. While the Roman Republic was not a democracy, it initially had many quasi-democratic elements, including free elections, term limits for its leaders, and public assemblies. By the late Republic, these institutions were challenged by increasingly powerful Roman generals, who controlled large armies drawn from the landless poor. Many late Roman commanders broke the rules around term limits and age restrictions when they stood for high office, confident that they had the backing of both the military and the masses. During the 1st century BCE, 3 mighty Roman men had a complete stranglehold over Roman politics: Pompey Magnus, Marcus Crassus, and Julius Caesar. After Crassus died, Caesar and Pompey would envelop Rome in civil war, with Caesar coming out on top, making himself dictator for life in 44 BCE. That same year, Caesar was stabbed to death during a Senate meeting for his outrageous power grab. Although Caesar had been murdered, the Republic was by now in its death throes. Caesar's right-hand man, Mark Antony, and his adopted son, Octavian, would form a new political alliance with the wealthy senator Marcus Lepidus. This alliance also fell apart, and soon Mark Antony and Octavian faced off against each other for control of the world's largest empire. Mark Antony and his lover Cleopatra lost the civil war, and Octavian became Rome's first emperor, renaming himself Augustus Caesar and ruling peacefully for 40 years. Rome would remain a monarchy until it fell in the 5th century CE, and it would go through some very dark times and some long stretches of unprecedented peace and prosperity. Some of the best remembered Roman emperors include the Mad Emperor Caligula, who declared war against the ocean, and Emperor Nero, who came to power as a teenager and was more interested in playing his lyre and reciting poetry than running the empire. Rome had many great emperors, including the formidable conqueror Trajan and the philosopher emperor Marcus Aurelius. Rome would reach its greatest height and have some of its best rulers during the 2nd century CE, drastically improving living standards for many people across the ancient world. Aqueducts, sewers, long-lasting and sturdy roads, and enormous marble buildings were just some of the benefits Rome's subjects enjoyed. By the 3rd century, Rome started to decline, as it was plunged into a seemingly endless series of civil wars. While Rome was on the brink, it would have a brief period of recovery during the 4th century, when several great emperors helped restore Rome's strength. The most important of these emperors was Constantine the Great, who made the bold step of converting to Christianity. The Roman Catholic Church that Constantine helped to create would long outlive the empire itself. Rome's renewed stability would not last long, and in the late 4th and early 5th centuries CE, multiple Germanic tribes crossed the empire's Rhine-Danube border within a few years of each other. The Romans tried to integrate these invaders into their own army, but they soon proved uncontrollable. Rome itself was sacked twice in one century, in 410 by the Visigoths and 455 by the Vandals. The last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was finally deposed in 476 CE. The chaotic European Dark Ages had begun. The early medieval period would be awful for Italy, as many competing powers would attempt to conquer the peninsula. Initially, Italy fell under the control of the Germanic Ostrogoths, but by the mid-6th century CE, the clever and militarily savvy Byzantine Emperor Justinian I invaded Italy in an attempt to rebuild the Roman Empire. While the Byzantines would successfully wrestle Italy from the Goths, they would struggle to hold on to the war-ravaged peninsula. The 20-year conflict so broke Italy, and it was immediately and successfully invaded by yet another Germanic tribe, the Lombards, who swept down from the north. Italy quickly fractured into multiple pieces, initially splitting between the Lombards and the Byzantines. The Lombards did not maintain a single stable kingdom in Italy, but they did create several smaller kingdoms that would survive for a long time in fragments. As the Byzantines gradually lost their grip on power and ceased to administer large parts of Italy, a series of self-governing independent kingdoms emerged in the medieval period. Some of these tiny kingdoms would become very powerful despite their small size. The Papal States, a narrow corridor of land stretching from Rome to Ravenna, gradually fell into the Pope's hands and became highly influential in the Middle Ages. Severely in need of protection, one ruler of the Papal States, Pope Leo III, received military aid from the Frankish Emperor Charlemagne. Charlemagne invaded northern Italy, displacing the Lombards, and had himself crowned Emperor of Romans by the Pope on Christmas Day in 800 CE. Although Charlemagne's empire began to collapse after his death, parts of northern Italy would continually be absorbed and reabsorbed into the largely German Holy Roman Empire, as it fluctuated wildly in size over many centuries. By the late Middle Ages, as the European economy gradually expanded, many more Italian city-states grew in wealth and importance. Because of Italy's geographical position, it became an increasingly significant commercial hub. Its coastal cities came to the forefront for their expert shipbuilding, manufacturing, and easy access to ocean trade. In the southern regions and in Sicily, this trade was taken up by the invading Normans, who established several kingdoms there. The most powerful of these maritime city-states was Venice, known as the Serene Republic. Now regarded as one of the most beautiful cities on earth, this unusual city-state was built on a lagoon and created an enormous trading empire that would make it phenomenally rich. Venice was unusual in many ways, not least because its rulers, the doges, were chosen in aristocratic elections. Venice reached its absolute height during the Renaissance, expanding overseas to control parts of Greece and many coastal cities in the Balkans. Many other Italian city-states came to the forefront during the Renaissance, including Venice's main rival, the maritime state of Genoa. Italy was particularly important to the Renaissance, as many Byzantine refugees fled to Italy, bringing ancient documents and artistic techniques with them. To the south, the Tuscan city of Florence played a vital role in producing many great thinkers and artists during the 14th and 15th centuries. Florence was controlled by the incredibly wealthy Medici banking family, who could afford to spend their money sponsoring great artists and thinkers. Boccaccio, Machiavelli, Michelangelo, and Leonardo da Vinci are just a few of the distinguished figures who lived and worked in the city. The splendor of Renaissance Italy gradually faded away, and by the 16th century, the power of the Italian republics was increasingly affected by foreign invasions. For example, the Italian Wars, fought between 1494 and 1559, saw the Habsburgs, the French, and many other European powers fighting to control various regions of Italy. During this era, the Papal States also became embroiled in a power struggle as the Protestant Reformation began. The Reformation was sparked by the fiery German preacher Martin Luther, and the invention of the printing press helped spread new ideas across Europe. For the first time, many Europeans questioned Catholic dogma and the authority of the Pope. In response, the Church launched the Counter-Reformation, a movement designed to bring European countries back into the Catholic fold. It was only modestly successful, but the Papal States gained a great deal of political power as an independent state at this time, one determined to flex its muscles to spread Catholicism. On the whole, however, Italian independence continued to decline. Parts of Italy fell into the possession of the mighty Spanish Habsburgs, the Austrian Habsburgs, and later the Spanish Bourbons. This state of affairs would remain essentially unchanged until the French Revolution in 1789, when the French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte began his campaigns of conquest across Europe. Napoleon invaded Italy, but he also reorganized it, transforming its many tiny kingdoms into several large republics. Napoleon's wildly ambitious empire-building project was ultimately doomed, but he dramatically changed the political landscape of Europe while he was alive. After Napoleon's puppet states were removed or reshaped, Europe experienced a power vacuum in many places. In Italy, the period following the defeat of Napoleon, between 1814 and 1861, is known as the Risorgimento, or the Resurgence. While a meeting of European ambassadors, called Congress of Vienna, attempted to put Italy back to the way it had been before Napoleon, this became complicated and controversial. Napoleon had introduced modern reformist policies, and the antiquated aristocracies that had gone before him could not simply turn the clock back. As the Austrian Habsburgs and the Spanish Bourbons filtered back into Italy, calls for national independence grew. By the mid-19th century, ideas about national identity and ethnicity were on the rise in Europe, and the dream of a united and independent Italy spread like wildfire amongst young radicals. The cry, "Viva Italia!" went up across the nation, and in 1848, a general uprising broke out, inspired by the revolutions occurring across Europe. While northern Italy unified under the Prime Minister of Piedmont Sardinia, Camillo de Cavour, it took the great Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Garibaldi's efforts to free the South. Garibaldi has become a profoundly romantic figure in popular history. He learned guerrilla tactics by fighting with revolutionaries across Latin America and returned to Italy to fight in 1848. Garibaldi's revolutionary soldiers, the iconic red shirts, would invade Sicily with only 1,000 men before marching north to unite the peninsula. Thanks to Garibaldi and Cavour, Italy was declared a unified republic in 1861, although Venice resisted until 1866, and Rome resisted until 1870. The king of Piedmont Sardinia, Victor Emmanuel II, became the first king of Italy. The new country would function as a peaceful democratic republic until after the First World War. After World War I, Italy, like much of Europe, was rocked by the significant economic difficulties of the early 1920s. As Europe sunk into a deep depression, Italy, like Germany, turned towards extremist politics as life became more difficult. The fascist party in Italy, led by Benito Mussolini, made a bid for power in 1922, dissolving Italian democracy and establishing a dictatorship. Mussolini's supporters, the Blackshirts, used violence and intimidation to keep people in line, and freedom of expression was temporarily snuffed out. Mussolini claimed to be restoring Italy to the glory days of ancient Rome. He spent a lot of time and energy acquiring colonies for Italy across East Africa in a short-lived attempt at empire building. Mussolini's regime would be short-lived and unpopular. His fascists sided with Hitler during the Second World War, but when it became clear Italy was not doing well, Mussolini was removed from power and arrested in 1943. He was ultimately executed and his body abused by an angry mob in 1945. After the war, the King of Italy held a referendum, and the Italian people installed a republic once again. With democracy restored, post-war Italy initially experienced an economic boom in the 50s and 60s, and Italy has since become one of the largest economies in Europe, thanks to its sizable population. Like most of Western Europe, Italy has also enjoyed a lengthy peace since the war, and has become an important modern power and member of the EU and G7. With a reputation for fantastic wine, food, and art, and staggering and lengthy history, Italy today is a desirable place to live and one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world.